Hello, Year 9. This is our 7th lesson of the inquiry on the suffrage movement. Remembering that suffrage is about that ability or the right to vote. And our inquiry title was Violence, the Driving Force Behind Women Gaining the Vote. So I'm going to remind you, was real, actual, sort of deliberate violence the reason or the driving force behind women gaining the vote? Or was it not violence? Was it peaceful? Was it something else? Was it a certain kind of protest? Was it a certain group of people? That's what you need to kind of come up with and decide and see the sort of parallels or links between. Reminder, last week or last lesson, you had your knowledge organizer and you were going to do some revision in preparation for a little knowledge quiz today. Your teacher will have set you a knowledge quiz alongside this. So watch this through first, do the knowledge quiz, and then do the extended paragraph. Reminder, this is what we looked at last lesson. And it was trying to get you to think about how you can improve your explanations of causes. The point of it being, there's always many causes to an event. Lots of different reasons, all of which have a role to play, all of which are important. But what we're trying to do is to show how they have different levels of importance and different roles within that. So if something sparked something else, then that is at the very end, one of the final causes. If something was the underlying cause, it was always present. It'd been there in the long term. It'd been there for a long, long time. And if something exacerbated or accelerated, this sped up the event. It made it more likely to happen, quicker to happen. And this is what we want you to be doing with our inquiry on the suffrage movement. So our 4 causes we've looked at were the social changes during the Industrial Revolution, in which the Chartist movement emerged, the suffragists, the suffragettes, and World War I. I want you to be thinking which of these was the root cause or the underlying cause, so the ones in the longest distance ago. Which of these accelerated the process? Did any of these trigger women gaining the vote? And then to think, well, which of those was more important? It could be an underlying cause. It could be an accelerator. Accelerated so quickly that it was the result of them that the vote was finally achieved. Or it could be the trigger, without which maybe they wouldn't have got the vote. That's for you to think, work out, discuss. And then, when you've kind of worked that side out, you've got to think, well, does that mean it was violent? For instance, the suffragettes were violent, militant? Or was actually violence just one part of the puzzle? And actually, they received the vote because of so many other things. So that's for you to judge. And today you're going to be writing up an extended paragraph to give your view, to give your insight onto this. A reminder about those different types of causes. At the base, in the long term, you've got a root cause, the foundations, underlying or fundamental. In the middle, the accelerators, the contributors, the exacerbators, and the final causes in the very short term, sparked, trigger. So this is what you're doing. This is your title. Was violence the driving force behind women gaining the vote? I've put this out if this helps you. You might want to write it in your own way, using the style we've done before to help you. Or you might want a little bit of structure given to you, which is here if you want to use it. So firstly, use one causal word linked to each factor. Here on the right hand side, root, underlying, accelerate. Minimum, use 3 factors. If you can use 4, but at least 3. Then link it to 2 or 3 specific facts. So bring some facts in from what you've learned to prove it was a root cause or an accelerator or a trigger. And then link back to the inquiry. Does this then therefore prove that violence was key, was the driving force, or was there more to it than just violence? Here's a bit of a model answer that someone wrote last year. I'm going to read out to you, and you can think about kind of causal language they're using, any facts, but also are they answering the question? I do believe that violence was the driving force and accelerated the idea behind women gaining the vote. The violence caused by the suffragettes accelerated gaining the vote, consisted of Emily Davison getting trampled on by a horse and a window-smashing campaign of government buildings and vandalising the Prime Minister's car. The suffragists also contributed to gaining the vote, but most of their proposals failed, and they didn't have a big impact compared to the suffragettes. The fundamental cause was the social changes when property-owning men gained the vote in 1823, after the Industrial Revolution. So after about 100 years, women started campaigning to gain the vote. The trigger for women gaining the vote was World War I, in my opinion. This is because women took part in the industrial and munition-making work, while men were fighting on the home front and was deemed. So, a really good effort, but could be improved. We have an answer to the question at the start, but I don't think they've explained that throughout this paragraph. They've used brilliant causal words throughout: accelerate, contribute, fundamental, trigger, but they haven't tied that back into, therefore, which of these causes was the central, most important, and therefore, does that show violence was the driving force or not? But they have used lots of good facts throughout. Smashing windows, vandalising Prime Minister's car, Emily Davison, Industrial Revolution, men getting the vote, etc. So there's lots and lots of good evidence, but it needs a little bit more explanation to prove their view. So again, here is a slide to help you out. You can stop the video and use this, or your teacher may have put it into the files section, and I want you to write your answer on the Microsoft Forms exit pass sort of quiz, as well as doing the knowledge quiz too. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you produce.